The Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON, reported a full-year 2012 loss after tax of 822.9 billion naira compared to a loss after tax of 2.37 trillion naira in the previous year. CNBC Africa's Wale Famurewa caught up with AMCON's Executive Director for Finance, Mofoluke Dosumu, for more on the results of AMCON's activities this year. Take a look.
If we look at our financials ended 2011, we actually saw a loss of 2.3 trillion naira, which is very different from what you have in 2012, which is 822 billion loss. Now that 822 billion loss is principally made up of three figures. The first figure being the interest on the bonds issued to date by AMCON. As of today, AMCON has issued bonds worth 5.7 trillion. Now, almost the full amount of that interest expense is hitting our profits and loss because only about 50% of our loans have been restructured. In line with accounting practices, while we take the full interest expense, we only take interest income on the loans that we have restructured. In terms of loan restructuring, we've been able to make some traction even between 2012 and 2013. While as at December 2012, only 22% had been restructured, as at October this year, we've been able to move up to 50%. So there is some ramping up there. But as at 2012, we took only interest on 22%. The next large number is the provision that we took in terms of marking the collaterals underlying these assets to market, which is in line with accounting practices. All the collaterals in our books underlying the EBAs that we bought were marked to market, and that is another 16%. The first figure was over 50%. The third figure is the loss on restructured loans. Basically, the difference between revaluing assets, either at the economic value or as an estate market value. There you have the 822 billion. Really, out of this 822 billion, less than 1.2% is actually operating expenses to AMCON.
Now, given its implications for your bond redemption this year, talk us through your engagement with debtors right now.
What we're seeing is that AMCON has spent the first 2 years meeting with our obligors, entering into good faith restructuring agreements with them. And what we would see going forward is more action from AMCON for those debtors that are not meeting their obligations under the restructuring agreement. You would find AMCON going into a system whereby the underlying collateral under these loans will have to be realized either by forfeiture or by foreclosure. In addition to that, we're also moving to engage with the remaining 50% of our obligors. So by the end of this year, definitely we expect to have met with at least the 60%, which was our target initially. Right now we're just over 50%. So we expect that our recovery to increase. We expect our income from our assets under management to increase. You did mention our refinancing. At the end of this year, the first 1.7 of AMCON bonds, 1.7 trillion, will be coming due. And AMCON aims to pay those bonds as at when due. There's a whole refinancing structure being put into place between CBN and AMCON on our refinancing of the 5.7 trillion of our bonds.
Can you just share some more detail on the process for the redemption in December? I do know that there are some things that need to happen before that, particularly for those that will be paid.
As of today, AMCON is given notice of the first set of bonds, which will be maturing in December. That's 1.7 trillion. Those mature in December, so there's no early call on those. However, we will be making an early call on series 2 to 4, which would ordinarily mature between April and August next year. We're giving notices out today, and we expect the bondholders to come back to AMCON to confirm which options they want or how they want to be repaid, either in cash or in treasury bills. We expect them to confirm to us by the 19th of this month how they want to be paid. Now, although we're making those calls now, those payments will be made at the end of December. As of today, we have a working team between AMCON and the Central Bank of Nigeria, which will enable us dimension how much is coming into the market after these choices have been made in terms of treasury bills or cash, which gives CBN enough time to dimension how much liquid cash might come into the market and the necessary measures that might be taken to mop up this cash.
Can you just provide an update on the process to sell the 3 banks that you own? We know you've announced a process starting with Enterprise Bank.
It is important to note that this process is being handled independent of AMCON. AMCON appointed independent advisors for Enterprise Bank. For the financial advisors, it's a consortium of Citibank as well as Vertiva. They are running that process independent of AMCON, and that process is being handled very transparently in a very orderly manner. The start-off was the advertisement worldwide of Enterprise Bank to the market, and various interested parties indicated by sending in their EOIs, expression of interest, to that advisor, those set of advisors. That process, while we understand that a lot of Nigerians have an expectation of speed, we would rather ensure that it's done in an orderly, transparent, in due process manner, such that all Nigerians are convinced that they had their chance to bid for this bank, they had the chance to purchase this bank, and it was indeed sold to the best bidder. Of course, after the advisors come back to us with what they have, it still has to go through the regulatory authorities, starting with the Central Bank of Nigeria, who regulates the banking industry, before the preferred bidder is appointed.
What can you tell us about the level of interest in Enterprise Bank?
Well, like I did say, it's been handled independent of AMCON. I'm aware that they had quite a number of expressions of interest, both from Nigerians and outside Nigeria, and those were shortlisted. And right now they're in the midst of sending out RFPs to those that have indicated their interest and had been shortlisted, the first shortlisting. But as to the number or the names, I can't say I know.